Welcome to Yinz Podcast. I'm your host, Envy. Lot of other conditions like in a Down syndrome population, like ear problems, eye issues, or anything like a sleep apnea. Those are like 100% can be cured, addressed through various procedures and everything. But what about Alzheimer's? Um, do you have like for any no population has a medicine for Alzheimer's? Like, do you have a treatment and cure for that?
There are a lot of health challenges that we often see throughout the lifespan of individuals with Down syndrome, and often there are great treatments for it. Alzheimer's is one of the things that we still struggle with. I will say that that's the area of cutting edge research that we have a better and better understanding of why Alzheimer's happens. We do not necessarily have the treatment that stops or reverses it at this point. But what I would say is, I'm hopeful that as we are spending more time, more money, and more energy in thinking about treatments, we're going to get there one day. And I think that actually, once again, when we think about the care of individuals with Down syndrome, it may be from this community and learning how to care for them that it actually helps make some breakthroughs for all of us.
Like, we talked a lot about learning support and other areas where parents can do. Do you have any resources? Like, when I mean you, a children's hospital or the Down Syndrome Association, is there any resources like parents can go and find? Because there are like tons of uh, information on the internet, but like if anything in the local INS community or Pittsburgh area, greater Pittsburgh area, they can easily access like.
I would say a couple great places to go to think about resources. So number one, if you're in Western PA, connecting with the Down Syndrome Association of Pittsburgh. They have a website, and you can see both. They have a couple different ways to access resources. So they have a regular educational series that is virtually given and often recorded. And so you can go and look, and they have topics across the spectrum of different things that can be important. Healthcare, but also a lot of things on the everyday life and thinking about specific questions around feeding or thinking about how you access educational needs. So a lot of different resources there, and that's really great for our Western PA community. I would also say they have a lot of different access to community events as well, so you can meet other families and be able to make relationships. And some of that next peer-to-peer support is really important. And then if we back up and we look more nationally, I would say that there's three great organizations that if you're going to access information, I would trust their information. And the first one is the Down Syndrome Medical Interest Group. So that's the organization I'm a part of. It is a healthcare organization that's meant to educate healthcare professionals to make sure that we know all the cutting edge information around the care of individuals with Down syndrome. But we have a website and families can access that. One of the things that's really powerful, no matter where you're at in the country, if you go to the Down Syndrome Medical Interest Group USA, you can actually search and say, is there a provider, a healthcare professional around me that's part of this organization? And you can know that they're an individual who has experience and expertise. So it can be a clearinghouse for finding different professionals. The other two organizations are more targeted to families. So like I said before, there was one called NDSS, National Down Syndrome Society. Really strong advocacy community. They have a lot of resources that are short pamphlets, and they also do have a couple conferences that target about education. And a great example is they recently created a pamphlet for women's health in Down syndrome. So what are the women's health needs as women age? And it kind of focuses very specifically, and people haven't done a lot of work, so it's a great clearinghouse to optimize that specific topic. The other great organization I would say is the National Down Syndrome Congress, so NDSC. And they have an annual conference that you can attend. It goes all over the country, and it's a great conference, usually a few days long, and once again, it's a time where you can go and learn about any different topic from educational to healthcare to developmental needs to advocacy. And they just have a great opportunity to kind of just meet other people across the country, but also get to hear some great workshops to kind of expand your knowledge about Down syndrome. And so I would say those would be kind of three great organizations if you want to look on websites and get information: Down Syndrome Medical Interest Group, National Down Syndrome Society, and the National Down Syndrome Congress, which are more national organizations.
Yeah, one thing I want to add is like the Down Syndrome Association also gives scholarships and every year to attend the Down Syndrome annual event. Is that still taking place?
Yeah. So, yeah, we actually a few years ago, 2019, the National Down Syndrome Congress was in Pittsburgh. And so that's one of the times when we really developed those scholarships to be able to do that. But there still is support for families who are trying to go to the National Congress because if you imagine, it can be an expensive process. So I would just connect with the Down Syndrome Association of Pittsburgh if you're interested in learning more.
So, since we talked about all these resources, and one more other thing probably parents would like to know is what kind of educational framework you recommend for the Down syndrome population and our community, and what is the difference? Because, like, why some schools only recommend like special ed classrooms?
Yeah. So when we think about education and thinking about the best method to educate an individual, I think we have to think and take a step back and recognize that there isn't a one size fits all. I think that there are a couple principles that are really, really important. So I absolutely believe in inclusion. And inclusion means that we don't just include somebody in a classroom, but we also give them the things that they need to thrive in that classroom. So all the research around inclusion, meaning that a classroom shouldn't be separated by abilities, that there shouldn't be a classroom for exceptional children, there shouldn't be a classroom for children who have normal cognitive abilities, and there shouldn't be a classroom for those who have intellectual differences or neurodivergence. That actually, the research that shows that when we put them all in the same classroom, everybody benefits is true, but there's a really, really important point in that. That is that each of those children in that classroom have the support that they need. So, for instance, if you have an inclusive classroom with an individual who has an intellectual difference, they may need an aid or a support to be with them so that as we're doing a lesson, they have someone who's walking alongside them and support them. When they get that appropriate support, when there's equity, when they get what they need, actually it benefits the child next to them who maybe doesn't need that support, but that aid can turn next to that child who maybe is struggling for a few seconds and help them as well. So we know inclusive classrooms work best when everybody in that classroom gets what they need. So I think that we have to be really careful when we think about inclusion. We don't just mean include, we mean inclusion, where we get what not only are people present, but they have what they need to thrive and flourish, and that helps everybody in the classroom thrive and flourish. I said it's not a one size fits all because the reality is dependent on the school and the school district that you're in. There may be a difference in resources. And so if you are just putting a child in a classroom so that you can say you have inclusive classrooms, but that child does not receive the things they need, that actually can be detrimental to that child. So I think that you can't have inclusion without equity. And so we have to make sure that all the children are getting what they need in that. So when I meet with families around IEP meetings, because we have these discussions all the time, it's not a simple discussion. It's a discussion of saying, as your school is assessing what your child needs, are they able to provide what your child needs, and what environment can they do that in? And that helps us know what is best for your specific child. Thank you.
All resources and contact information you can find in our description of this video.